Most people think low intelligence is easy to recognize. They imagine someone who struggles in school, makes obvious mistakes, or can't understand simple things. But what if some of the most revealing signs are much harder to notice? What if low intelligence sometimes looks like confidence? A person can speak loudly, act confident, have strong opinions, and still have a very weak way of thinking, because intelligence isn't just about how much you know. It's about how you process information, how you react when you're wrong, and whether you can learn from your experiences. Here are 11 hidden behaviors that may reveal poor reasoning and limited thinking. The first sign is refusing to admit when you're wrong. Think about how difficult it is for some people to say, "I was wrong." They will explain, defend, blame, or change the subject before admitting a mistake. Why? Because for them, being wrong feels like being weak. But intelligent people understand something important. Being wrong is not the opposite of intelligence. Refusing to learn from being wrong is, a strong thinker can say, "I didn't know that," or "I changed my mind after seeing the evidence." That isn't weakness. That's intellectual humility. The second sign is blaming everyone except yourself. Something goes wrong, and there's always someone else responsible. Their boss is unfair. Their partner caused the problem. Their friends betrayed them. The economy ruined everything. Of course, external circumstances can genuinely affect our lives, but the problem begins when someone never asks, "What was my role in this?" Intelligent people don't blame themselves for everything. They simply examine what they can control, because if you believe every failure is someone else's fault, you remove your own ability to improve. The third sign is only believing information that confirms your existing opinion. This is called confirmation bias. We all experience it. When information supports what we already believe, we accept it quickly. But when information challenges us, suddenly we become skeptical. For example, imagine you believe someone is dishonest. They make one suspicious decision, and you think, "I knew it." But when they behave honestly 10 times, you barely notice. That's confirmation bias. A stronger thinker asks, "What evidence could prove me wrong?" Because feeling certain doesn't mean being correct. The fourth sign is talking to appear intelligent instead of listening to learn. You've probably met someone like this. You start explaining something, and they interrupt. You tell a story, and they immediately tell a better one. You mention an idea, and they turn the conversation back toward themselves. They're not really listening. They're waiting for their turn to speak. Intelligent people understand that every person knows something they don't. That's why they ask questions. They listen. They stay curious. The person trying to look smart wants to impress you. The person trying to become smarter wants to understand you. And over time, that difference becomes enormous. The fifth sign is jumping to conclusions without enough evidence. Someone doesn't text back. They're ignoring me. Someone looks serious. They're angry. Someone makes one mistake. They're incompetent. The human brain loves quick conclusions because quick decisions once helped humans survive. But in modern life, those shortcuts can create terrible judgments. A thoughtful person asks, "What else could be happening?" Maybe the person is busy. Maybe something happened. Maybe you don't have the full story. Intelligence isn't having an immediate answer. Sometimes it's knowing when you don't have enough information to answer yet. The sixth sign is being extremely confident about things you barely understand. This is one of the most interesting patterns in psychology. People with limited knowledge can sometimes feel extremely confident because they don't yet understand how complicated the subject really is. Someone watches 3 videos about investing and suddenly becomes a financial expert. Someone reads a few psychology articles and starts diagnosing everyone around them. Meanwhile, genuine experts often sound more careful. They say, "It depends. There isn't enough evidence. There are several possibilities." The more you understand a complicated subject, the more aware you become of what you still don't know. That's why confidence should never be confused with competence. The seventh sign is rarely asking questions. Some people avoid questions because they are afraid of looking uninformed. So they pretend to understand. They nod. They stay quiet. They act as if they already know. But this creates a serious problem. If you never ask questions, your knowledge gaps remain exactly where they are. Curiosity is one of the greatest tools for learning. A child doesn't care about looking stupid. They ask why again and again. Adults often lose that courage because they become more concerned with appearance. But there's nothing embarrassing about saying, "I don't understand. Can you explain that?" The embarrassing thing is pretending you understand something you don't. The eighth sign is repeating the same mistakes without learning from them. Everyone makes mistakes. That isn't a sign of low intelligence. The real problem is making the same mistake repeatedly, without reflection. Maybe it's the same relationship pattern with different partners, the same financial mistake every year, the same argument with every friend, the same decision producing the same result. At some point, you have to ask, what am I missing? Intelligent thinking includes metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. After something goes wrong, you examine it. What happened? What did I assume? What could I have done differently? Without that reflection, experience doesn't automatically become wisdom. Sometimes it just becomes repetition. The ninth sign is attacking people instead of ideas. Someone disagrees with you, and instead of answering their argument, you attack them. You're stupid. You know nothing. Who are you to say that? This is a classic example of an ad hominem attack. If an idea is wrong, you should be able to explain why the idea is wrong. You don't need to destroy the person who said it. Strong thinkers challenge arguments. Weak reasoning often attacks the person behind the argument. The moment a discussion becomes personal, the search for truth usually starts disappearing. The 10th sign is believing your first impression is always correct. First impressions are powerful. Your brain makes rapid judgments about people and situations. But a first impression is not a complete picture. A thoughtful person treats it as a starting point. They think, this is my first impression, but I could be wrong. A rigid thinker treats it as a final verdict. Then every future action gets interpreted through that original judgment. If they decide someone is arrogant, every confident statement becomes evidence. If they decide someone is dishonest, every mistake becomes suspicious. The problem is that you stop seeing the person as they actually are. You start seeing your own assumptions, and that can damage relationships, careers, and opportunities. The 11th sign is believing that changing your mind means you're weak. This may be the biggest one of all. Some people think intelligent people should always stand by their original opinions. But think about what learning actually means. You receive new information, you examine it, you compare it with what you previously believed. And sometimes you change your mind. That's not weakness, that's learning. Imagine your beliefs are a map. If reality shows you that the road isn't where you thought it was, an intelligent person updates the map. A rigid person keeps insisting the map is correct. The greatest thinkers weren't people who never changed their minds. They were people willing to change their minds when better evidence appeared. And that's the real lesson behind all 11 signs. These behaviors aren't permanent labels. Everyone can display them sometimes. You might become defensive when you're embarrassed. You might jump to conclusions when you're emotional. You might refuse to admit you're wrong during an argument. One moment doesn't define your intelligence. Battles matter. And instead of using these signs to judge everyone around you, use them as a mirror. Ask yourself, can I admit when I'm wrong? Can I listen without preparing my response? Can I change my opinion when the evidence changes? Can I ask questions without worrying about looking stupid? Can I learn from my mistakes? Because real intelligence isn't about always being right. It's about becoming less wrong over time. It's about staying curious. It's about being willing to say, I don't know. And sometimes, the smartest sentence you can ever say is also the simplest. I might be wrong. Because the moment you're willing to consider that possibility, your mind becomes open to learning. And a mind that keeps learning will always have an advantage over a mind that believes it already knows everything.